Screonk, a Godzilla movie marathon where we're stomping through Godzilla's filmography. I'm Derek, and I've seen all the Godzilla movies.
And I'm Doug, and I've seen 28 Godzilla movies.
And we're talking about the 33rd film in the Godzilla franchise, the third in the Reiwa era, and the second in this anime trilogy, Godzilla City on the Edge of Battle.
Whoa.
Also known in Japanese as Gojira Keisen Kido Zoshiko Toshi, which can be translated multiple ways. Some of the ways, and all of them sound bananas, some of the ways it can be translated are Godzilla Battle Mobile Breeding City, or Godzilla, the city mechanized for the final battle, or Godzilla Decisive Battle Mobile Proliferating City.
Oh, so when they translated it for us or localized it for us, they
got rid of the spoiler.
Said, "What if we just don't tell you what this is about?"
Right. They're like, yeah, because all of those are about a city that grows. I love breeding city is such an evocative phrase, but like it's right, like that's not wrong.
Yeah.
This movie was released in Japan on May 18th, 2018, and then on Netflix internationally on July 18th, 2018, which is in both cases about 6 months after the first film released. And it's spoiler, it's going to be the same for the next movie. These released in 6 month increments. It was directed by Kobun Shizuno and Hiroyuki Seshida, with a story by Gen Urobuchi, screenplay by Sadayuki Murai, Tetsuya Yamada, and Gen Urobuchi, and produced by Keiji Ota, with a score by Takayuki Hattori. Most of those names we recognize. The couple that we don't, we will talk about. And of course, we'd like to take a quick moment to thank our spectacular patrons: Bo, Carl, Katie, Jason, Zoe, James, Keith, Cody, Toby, Hamish, Blake, Jace, Jojak, David W, David A, Russ, and Christian.
Thank you.
Previously on Screonk. Yeah. So if you, I guess, haven't listened to the last episode, this is part 2 of a 3-part trilogy for a 3-part movie trilogy. So this is you know what? Let's just say it was the easiest notes I've ever had to make, because all the research stuff done in the last one, this is really just aside from a couple other fun behind the scenes things, this is just going to be purely just conversation.
I know. We'll never get to a movie so fast.
Yeah, right. I don't know. Was this at all what you thought this would be for the second movie in this trilogy?
Okay. I mean, I think I readily admitted in the last one that I had no fucking clue what could possibly be next, especially based on the title that we got in English. But also, no, how could I have possibly predicted this? I will say this, though. I do like this movie a lot better than the last one. I wouldn't say that I love this movie, but I do like it better than the first one.
Yeah, I think, I understand why when I originally watched these, I still wasn't clamoring to go to the third one, because this movie is a real bummer. But I agree with you that I think it has a lot of the same pacing problems as the first one, in that it's very slow. And I think that maybe it's just the nature of these films. But I think there's more meat on it. And I think there's more interesting things. And I do think that there's a lot of points in this movie where, like, the first one, I think I had some frustrations where it's sort of like, I understand how there are Godzilla things in this movie, and broadly there are ideas from Godzilla, that they sort of, mixed and matched in that movie. But it still felt like it felt like they're just making a sci-fi movie and then also added some Godzilla stuff into it. This movie, it does really feel like they were looking at some broad elements from the Godzilla series in general and trying to figure out really interesting, unique points of view and perspectives and takes on them in a way that we've truly never seen before, which I think is really cool. I have zero issue with doing that with traditional Godzilla lore and iconography. There's takes on elements of Godzilla stuff in this movie that you will surely never see in any Godzilla thing ever, even into the future,
Real.
And so I think that is something really cool. That's a thing that certainly could alienate traditionalists, like we talked about for the first movie. But I also think I embrace, that being something that filmmakers pursue when they are interested in doing so. So I think that alone makes this movie more interesting than the first one, no matter what. I still don't love many of the choices that are made, but I think that there's a lot more meat in it and some really interesting concepts in it that I think are really cool.
Yeah, I think it's a fun movie to think about. I think there is stuff that feels more like moral dilemmas we have talked about characters having to parse out in Godzilla movies here than certainly in the first one, I would say. And like the pacing is still not good in this movie, but
no.
there is more happening, at least.
Sure.
You know?
Like there's more just like actually
events. More to talk about, like things literally happening within the universe. There's like, you know, action happening in you know, stages kind of. So there's just more to kind of bite into than the last one. So
yeah.
And I know the characters a little bit better. Not all of them, certainly, but I can tell you who Belube and Galugu are. I know which one's which. I can look at them and tell you. So, like, they do focus on certain characters enough in this second one for me to tell you a little bit more about each one and actually give some motivation for people outside of just Haruo.
For sure. I think we can talk about whether or not the character arcs make sense or anything like that. But
sure.
But I do agree with you. There's like it. The last movie really felt like Haruo and a bunch of other people. This movie does feel like an ensemble cast way more, even if Haruo is still like the central character, which is a big step up from the last movie for sure.
So it's like heading in a direction I can still feel, and who knows, maybe I'm kidding myself, but still feel optimistic about. I can still see where they could stick the landing, you know?
When I rewatched this movie, I still had yet to see the third one. And I did leave it feeling, well, the actual last moments of the movie, I was like, fuck this movie. But generally coming out of the movie, I was definitely a lot more interested and kind of cautiously excited for how we wrapped up, which compared to the first one where I left it being like, I have to watch 2 more of these. That's a step up. Yeah. The one kind of significant production thing that I want to bring up for this one is that out of the 3 movies, this is the only one that brings in additional writers. Gen Urobuchi is the sole credited writer for the first and third movies. He is also a credited writer here, of course. He did the story, and he's credited for the screenplay. But I think just because of just timing and basically having 3 movies in production at the same time, they just brought him some help to crank out the actual screenplay for this one. Mm-hmm. The first one, Tetsuya Yamada, makes sense why he's brought on because he worked with the directors on Knights of Sidonia. I think that was his big credit up to this point, and then after this he would then join Seshida again on Gamera Rebirth afterwards. The really interesting guy, Sadayuki Murai. So he was a big collaborator with Satoshi Kon, having written the screenplays for Perfect Blue and Millennium Actress. Yeah. In addition to that, he also wrote on a number of like Ultra series in the late 90s and early 2000s. I think the reason he's connected here is because he did also write some of Knights of Sidonia as well. So that's how he gets connected here. But I do think that like there's a level of pedigree that's there. And suddenly this movie feels like an improvement over the first one.
Yeah. Can I tell you something funny though? And I haven't watched this yet, but Seshida directed another movie just before this. And I don't know what the production timelines on these things are, but directed another movie by Sadayuki Murai called Blame? I don't know. Was directed by Seshida and written by Murai. And that movie, I have no idea how similar they are, but that movie is about a city that continues to like expand and build upon itself out of humanity's control. And are you serious? I just laughed so hard. And I would like to watch it because I need to know how similar it is.
It's just funny because it's like literally the two prominent things that Seshida worked on, Knights of Sidonia and Blame. And those just movie 1 and movie 2 of this.
Literally.
It's like, what's the third going to be then, buddy? What are you redoing with Godzilla here? I don't know. Like, I'm not mad about creators like reusing ideas. And obviously these are adaptation, so it's more like he's being inspired by manga that he was adapting and then integrating into future stuff. There's nothing wrong with that, and Godzilla obviously famously like just borrows shit from every other movie that's ever popular. But it is very very funny when it's like the movies you worked on are the things that you're borrowing from. That is very funny.
It's so funny. Like, artists can explore the same things across multiple works, but it's just
so specific.
It's so specific, and it's all kind of close together, you know?
Yeah, like literally came out the same year. That's so funny. That's so funny.
Because my Netflix played the preview for this movie when I finished City on the Edge of Battle, and I was like, hold on a second, you said what? Like, it's so funny. It's so funny.
Oh my god, that's really, really funny. Wow.
But yeah, that is interesting, the pedigree. And I do think, I think you can feel it. I don't know. I mean, it's still a sequel to the first movie, and you can feel that too. But I do think there are improvements probably brought on by, bits of change.
Yeah. And I don't know to what extent they're really doing the script. It might just be a thing where like they just help with rewrites that Urobuchi had already Urobuchi wrote the first draft and they just come in and help with rewrites or something, like that could be possible, but it is interesting. Nothing. I think that is interesting. Yeah. And we'll see how it ranks when we get to the third one, and maybe they'll be part of it. But yeah, I thought that was interesting. The only thing that I did not mention last week that's in play for all three of these movies is that all three the end songs for all three movies are by the same J-pop artist, XAI. Just a J-pop artist that's been around for a while. I thought it was worth mentioning. They got like a real J-pop person to do the songs for him, and I do think the songs are very catchy. So yeah, they're good. They're good. Normally, after we do production stuff, we would go in and like talk about monsters.
Girl. Okay, there's a couple things with regards to this. I'm sure something that really grinds people's gears is the fact that Mechagodzilla is a city in this. That actually doesn't really bother me that much. I think there's cool stuff to explore with that. I can't believe I didn't predict Mothra was going to be in this movie, given that we are literally introduced to an indigenous character on a planet of monsters in the way that an indigenous character might be introduced on an island of monsters.
And to be fair, she's not like in the movie.
I know. I also can't believe once I saw the character sort of in full interacting with other characters, I think that is... Maina, I think, is the one we meet first.
We'll talk about their fucking names, but yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's Maina. Once I saw her interacting, I was like, wait a second, I'm so dumb. And then I saw the temple and the big mural, and I was like, it's literally fucking Mothra on the wall. How did I not see this? I'm so excited. We're going to get Mothra in the movie. There's no fucking Mothra in this movie. There's no Mothra in this movie. There's so much Mothra happening, and there's no Mothra in this movie.
Yeah, it is. I've got a few other background things that I want to bring up here from an interview that I pulled that I had not pulled for the first episode, but so this is also like related. This is related to the entire trilogy, but it felt important for this one because of the Mechagodzilla thing. This is an interview with Gizanet. That was the entire creative team. So it was all the writer, 2 directors, all of them were in this. And one of the things that I think I was unclear on when doing the research for the first movie is like Toho had ideas, but exactly what did Toho actually want from this movie? And Seshida clarifies, specifically says on no uncertain terms in that interview that like Toho told them the film couldn't be monster wrestling. They were not into a monster fight fest series of movies. And I do think if this is coming right off of Shin Godzilla, where it's just one Godzilla, I can sort of see why they're like, and at the same time, you have the Monsterverse where there are monster fights happening in those movies. I can see how you get to this one and they're sort of like, it seems like what's hitting with what we're doing right is no monster fights. So whatever we do, it's just going to be Godzilla and then other stuff happening where they don't fight. So that was a Toho idea, which I think is a big part. So then they build this movie around how do you have Godzilla monsters in it without Godzilla actually fighting other monsters? Okay,
to me that explains Mechagodzilla City, which again I'm mostly fine with. But Mothra and Godzilla don't have to fight each other to be in the same movie and be in opposition. Mothra is there to help humanity. You know what I mean? Well, or to punish humanity, depending on the story you're telling. Well. So, like, very easily, she could have just been here at the swoop in at the end. You know, like, I'm just shocked. I'm genuinely shocked because when I realized it was Mothra, I was like, oh my god, this makes sense. We didn't see Mothra, we didn't see Ghidorah in like the opening of the first movie. The first movie was Godzilla's movie. The second movie will feature Mothra. The third movie will feature Ghidorah. Actually, it's perfectly organized. Like that was my thought. I was like, okay. This kind of actually makes some sense.
I see what you mean.
Can't believe it. I'm like flabbergasted.
Yeah, I mean, there's still one more movie. We'll see.
There's still one more movie.
But I do feel it does feel like there is a monster element missing from this one. And I agree with you that like it does seem odd that like the direction of don't have monster on monster battles. Sure, that like makes sense. You can work around that, but that doesn't mean you can't have more than one monster literally on this entire monster planet. Like that does seem like a bizarre calculation that these movies make, where it's like, well, if we can't have the monsters fighting each other, then just like no monsters. Like and again, I'm fine with Godzilla movies that just have Godzilla in it, but it is weird when it's a whole trilogy of movies in a futuristic sci-fi setting that's animated and can therefore truly have any monsters that they want. And they same complaint as the first movie. It's like, it's just Godzilla and then the little flying dudes, and that's it, you know?
Yeah.
Like, it's just very weird. Like, I don't have an issue with the Mechagodzilla City thing. I think it'll be a fun conversation about that. But like, if you're only going to have Mechagodzilla City, then like monster, some other monster somewhere doing something. Yeah.
Right.
It makes the movie feel really empty and the world feel really empty too.
It's just like a bizarre choice from like a meta storytelling perspective.
Sure.
Because if you're going to take such a big swing to have a recognizable, famous monster, Mechagodzilla, not actually be a monster on screen, it does feel like you kind of need to balance that out with something that is a little bit more expected.
Yeah, I guess they really thought you were just going to fucking love the like vulture robots and stuff like that.
Maybe.
I do have some other, so this is all related to the same stuff. I just think these quotes are really funny.
Yeah.
So Seshida talked about how like one of the reasons I think we mentioned last week that like Shizuno had not seen any Godzilla movies, and they were sort of like, okay, if you haven't seen them, don't watch them. One of the reasons is so he can then kind of like check them on stuff whenever they're pitching stuff that would be normal to a Godzilla fan. He could be like, that doesn't make any sense. What are you talking about? Which I think it makes sense. He'd like tell them to chill out. So Seshida said, like, and I quote, if it had just been Urobuchi and me, to put it bluntly, the Mechagodzilla would have combined at the end to form a 1 kilometer tall Mechagodzilla. From there, it's just combat for another 30 minutes. Beams and missiles fly from the fingers, eyes, and nose. The head rotates. There are all kinds of gimmicks. And then Urobuchi followed it up saying, then when they were like, oh yeah, I guess they said we can't make a whole monster. Well, then we'll just have a bunch of turrets made out of Mechagodzilla heads instead. Like, they kept trying to come up with these ideas to still make it more Mechagodzilla-like. Yeah. And it would be like Shizuno, I think supported by Toho, being like, that sounds silly, you guys. Like, if we want to make a hard sci-fi movie, just make it like, if you want to embrace the city thing, don't make it a Mechagodzilla. Make it a city. Like that, make it like a nanotech city actually, and don't ever try to turn it into a dinosaur, you know?
I appreciate Hiroyuki Seshida so much. I don't know this man. I learned about this man last week. I now have a crush on this man, and I think this man should be allowed to make a Godzilla movie the way that he wants to. And I guess technically he did that with Gamera Rebirth, but
sure.
I think he should be allowed to make a Godzilla movie, because what he described is what I was hoping for to get me back on board. Mm-hmm. You know, especially because of the Mechagodzilla City thing, which I think has so much potential, you know?
Sure, it does. I think that's a thing that's hard about this, is because I don't think, I think people who've listened to us long enough would know that we're not like this, where it's like, it's hard to not make these arguments and sound like you're just like, I want my Godzilla movie to be like a regular Godzilla movie and be normal. Like, it's hard to not sound like that. And like, I don't think that's the argument. The argument is more like, if you're going to make radical changes to what you would expect and try to do something unexpected with Godzilla stuff, which is fine. You should, I think there should always be attempts to do that within any long running franchise of any kind.
1,000%.
Have an artist come in and make a swerve. Don't just go the expected route for everything, because don't try to pander to the audience. Don't try to just remake what was made before. Try to do something new and discover something new about it.
Yes.
All of that is on board. But I do think when you are doing that, and when you're making a radical swerve, especially a very radical swerve, it has to be like a swerve that is in a direction that is as satisfying or more satisfying is what you're swerving away from. And I do think the problem that I have with this movie, specifically with the Mechagodzilla City stuff, is like, I love the idea of the swerve, but then you just like, it just swerves in a way that's just really boring. Like, and it's just uninteresting and not what I come to any sort of kaiju or Godzilla thing at all for, which is like, it's just a bunch of guns and military robots, and you're calling it Mechagodzilla City, you know? Yeah.
It's interesting. I don't know. Do you want to talk about Mechagodzilla City in general? Like, I don't know if you have bits of production stuff before we like really dig into that. But
yeah, sure. Let's just talk about Mechagodzilla City now, because really, one thing that I do like about this movie, I will say, is that there's like two very clear sides of it that are kind of representing what it is thematically, which is the Mechagodzilla City stuff and the Hotua people stuff, like literally like nature versus the futuristic technology, right? I do think that the movie presents those two like contrasts very well, so makes it easier for the conversation. We'll talk about one thing for a while and talk about the other thing for a while. Perfect.
Right. Yeah, I think, okay, the Mechagodzilla City thing is so fascinating to me because I have so many thoughts about it. That's why I think it as much as it might not be wholly satisfying by the end, it is one of my favorite things about this movie because it is fun to think about, and I've thought about it so much. So like right off the bat, the fact that this is a planet that we left, came back to, and 20,000 years has passed, and the story for this city, which is bizarre. The fact that like in this story they are on a planet with nothing and then suddenly they just have a futuristic city, that is weird. But I do like it's just a weird progression of events, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But it's a weird status quo change. Like it is an immediate weird status quo change.
Can I feel
That's
like
okay. No, go
I'm
for
interrupting
it.
a thought, but like this gave me a thought. Would a better version of this, and I don't think about how this would make sense as a trilogy or if it should be one movie or not. Like, don't think about the structure stuff because it would throw a wrench on everything.
I'll have a thought about that, but I'll put it aside.
Is a better version of the first two movies is they land on Earth and immediately land in Mechagodzilla City, and the big like surprise of them coming back to Earth is like they've come back expecting it to have been like 20,000 years have passed, and it's just a radically different thing. And it's like, wait, we just came back to a fucking futuristic city. This doesn't make any sense.
I think that's a version that could work. I think that could be fine. I mean, my thought in general is that the first two movies, which are both just horribly paced for my liking, should be one movie. I just cannot possibly justify these being two separate movies. It is so wild.
Yeah.
Because I think there's that version that could work. I think there's a version where they come to Earth, they find portions or remnants or something for this city, and then they defeat their Godzilla sort of halfway through or at whatever point, and then the sort of everything's good now sort of fake out is them learning what this city is and it developing, and them thinking like, great, we defeated Godzilla and we have this city that we can work with, and we're getting along great. And then you could end the movie with the reveal of Godzilla Earth. I think I would feel much better about that if they had, some time. Mm-hmm. I think I said this last week too, right? Some time to like sit in their victory, and they could have sat in their victory literally in Mechagodzilla City.
Mm-hmm. And then once you transition to the Hotua stuff, feels almost like it's a stronger like move to like you meet them and it's sort of like, oh, here's like a functioning civilization like that didn't need Mechagodzilla City, so maybe we don't need Mechagodzilla City or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, this movie presents the last movie and this movie both present like these extremes, and so if this trilogy is just exploring like these extremes, then the solution can be some blend of them, or all the extremes are wrong and the Hotua are right, or whatever, you know what I mean? Like there's different things you can do. But what I do like, the first thing I like about Mechagodzilla City is just the explanation for why it even exists. I love that we didn't really learn that much about Mechagodzilla in the first one. We just knew that they tried it, and that in this scenario where humanity fails or believes that they've failed, one of the plans that failed was the Bill of Saluto's Mechagodzilla, right? And we even saw one thing that I think is actually clever is we even saw one person. I don't know if it was one of our guys or not, but we saw one person in that little clip, that like surveillance clip, being like, we could still do this. And it does give you that question of like, well, now that I know that this city kind of survived and proliferated and like, is still trying to carry out its mission of destroying Godzilla, like, was that one guy right? Like, should they have stayed behind and stood by their creation of Mechagodzilla? I don't think this movie is answering that question, but I do like that the combination of that surveillance clip and the reveal of this city does make me question that at all. I think that's fun. I also think the explanation for why they just get to find a fucking futuristic city on this planet, as ridiculous as that is, I do like that the explanation then becomes, well, our Mechagodzilla was built out of this living metal. Right. And this living metal was programmed with this one mission, which is to stop Godzilla. And so us not being there doesn't stop this living organism, this living metal, from carrying out its mission. And so as we think about it, yeah, I guess it would make sense that it would just continue to develop. And maybe, honestly, maybe Mechagodzilla City has been defeated several times in the past 20,000 years. But as long as it hasn't been eradicated, it's going to keep developing and keep learning and keep whatevering over and over and over. And I like that idea. I think there is something really, really cool and fascinating that you can mine out of that alone.
I agree. And I do think it's really smart. It's a smart comparison to Godzilla Earth, who the creators described Godzilla Earth like as presenting him as like a world tree type thing. And it's kind of shown that he's like so connected to the environment, and all the creatures and plants and stuff somehow are kind of like connected to or evolved from him in some way, because he's been the sort of dominant force on this planet for so long. So if you're going to have this Godzilla that is sort of in a weird way representing like the natural world of this Earth, it does make sense that if you're going to have a Mechagodzilla, it's not going to be a big dinosaur necessarily. It's going to represent like an entire like city as well, to kind of combat the land that Godzilla is sort of taken over.
Yeah. You know? And there's a cool parallel when you learn what Mechagodzilla City is, in that Godzilla Earth is what it is because it's been growing for 20,000 years. Like, I guess this is what the result of Frankenstein versus Baragon would be if they never stopped Frankenstein. Because wasn't Frankenstein supposed to just keep growing forever?
Grow. Yeah, I guess so. Sure.
But I mean, Godzilla Earth has just grown for 20,000 years. And so I think it's cool that Mechagodzilla has just grown for 20,000 years, presumably, you know? So I like that. This is another one of those ideas that I mentioned last week that I really, really like, regardless of how they, you know, necessarily utilized it or executed it.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I wish I had like design stuff or whatever to talk about, but really I don't have any background on it because it's just a city. You know what I mean?
We can talk about the design. I think the design of the city is ugly and boring. Yeah.
I think that's a big problem with it.
Living metal city, do something
just a bunch
cool.
Of domes, like a bunch of domes and just flat metal. Otherwise, right? Like,
yeah, it doesn't even look like alien at all. Like, this is not an Earth material.
Yeah, it's really odd. I mean, unfortunately, I think considering how focused on like military weaponry and stuff and the futuristic technology stuff these movies are, like, it all looks really generic to me. Like, nothing. I don't think any of the weapon designs or mech stuff like really look like anything that I haven't already seen in a million video games at this point. You know,
I think that's what's a bummer, because like Polygon can animate some fucking robotics. We see it. Like, their animation for their technology, their animation for their ships or for the vultures, like, is good. It's just that the things they're actually animating look boring.
They're kind of nondescript. It's hard to like really get a sense of like their actual shapes and things like that.
Because this movie will not give any technology color at all.
Oh my God. It's
ever.
So true.
It's the white, black, or gray.
Like, the vulture has like the sort of pinkish like lights on it, I guess.
Yeah.
But like, that's it. That's like the only splashes of color, you know?
Yeah.
One of the things that was in that interview that I referenced, or in that Gigazine interview that I referenced earlier, is they said that there was a point where like some of the equipment was originally going to be riffing on Godzilla lore stuff. Like, they were going to have a version of a Super X, or there would just be like maser cannons again, which would be fun references. And that is a thing that I don't really understand why they nixed that, other than maybe Shizuno looked at it, was like, that looks stupid or something like that. I don't know. Like, that's the kind of stuff where it's just like, you can iterate and modernize on that in a way that's like still recognizable, but look cool, because those things already looked like relatively distinct. And I don't think that would make anyone like take anyone out of the movie. You know what I mean?
It's just like, it's weird because it's not, you already said it. It's a good thing to take swings and iterate well beyond sort of what the expected thing is. It's not weird to want to do something different. I don't think it is inherently bad for them to want to do a hard sci-fi trilogy, whatever, you know, absolutely. Like whatever, that on paper, that's fine. It's just weird to me because it seems like they it seems like they actively disliked or didn't want to like you said, why not do that? I don't understand. Like, that's such an inoffensive thing to include as a reference. Right. It's not important. And it's like, I understand not wanting to make your movie full of references or whatever, but that's not what this is. It's literally just like, it sounds like, I don't know the exact story, obviously. It sounds like either Shizuno or Toho or the combination of the two is just like dedicated to being like, nothing from previous Godzilla movies is allowed in this movie. And I don't understand that.
It ends up feeling kind of self-conscious. And I think we even said this in the last episode. I think in concept, I like the idea of having someone like Shizuno there to be like, I'm an outsider here, because theoretically that means that you're going to see things from a different perspective. And I think the ideal for that is then it's like, well, then you sort of approach these previously traditional ideas in a new way and maybe find new things to bring out of them that no one's ever thought of before, because no one's ever considered, because if you've grown up with Godzilla stuff, you're going to be like, well, this is what Godzilla does. And someone else who isn't familiar with it's going to be like, but I see like a big dinosaur. Why doesn't he do X? Right? Like it is something like a weird comparison, but like if you watch the original Showa era movies with the Ghidorah in it, I don't know that you're immediately going to be like, but what if he was like from the future and was like a merging of like 3 different creatures? But then the Heisei movie does that. And it's like, it makes sense. You know, it's like a weird take on Ghidorah, but it makes sense. Like, I think you can get interesting ideas on that are like radical swings that then still feel like weirdly in line with the original, or you can work it to feel like it makes sense, even if it's a weird swing. I think that that's what Shizuno theoretically is there for. But the problem with these is that it feels it feels like he's subtractive more than additive with it.
Yes.
It feels like he's just coming in and being like, this isn't good, this is a good, this is a good, this is a good, and then they don't really replace it with anything. Or if it's replaced with anything, it's very generic. And I'm not trying to put all that on Shizuno. It's more just like
clearly
the
Toho
way that
had some hand in this.
And also Seshida and Urobuchi like didn't push back on it at all either. Clearly, they were just sort of like, okay, I guess so. Like we're the Godzilla fans, and we're like the nerds here. So don't take our opinions into account. Like it's what it kind of sounded like when and that's what I think makes it feel self-conscious, is that it's sort of like, everything that you like as a Godzilla fan can't be in this movie. And again, I don't have an issue with just being like, let's not pander to the fans and do something different. But it feels like they go in such an opposite direction that it just ends up being, again, self-conscious and a little bit sort of like, we just don't want to be anywhere near that. Which then it's like, then why are you making a Godzilla movie?
Yeah,
you know?
I defended Shizuno's like existence as somebody who did not grow up watching or wasn't necessarily a fan of or not super familiar with Godzilla, because I think that's fine. 2 movies in, it doesn't just feel like he's not a fan. It really genuinely feels like he does not him and whoever was making decisions at Toho for whatever reason was in a mood, but it feels like that mood was that they just actively did not like Godzilla things, and so they didn't want them there. And I don't know, it's a bad feeling to get.
Yeah,
you know,
it's just and again, it's like, it's an animated movie. Like, I don't know, man. Like, this is your opportunity to do anything.
Right. And that's in response to learning that they wanted to just put like small references into the city itself, not the city. The city, again, I think is cool. It's just weird that they wouldn't let them adorn it with a silly little reference, you know?
Yeah. Can I tell you that they, while we're just on the subject, another little thing they were going to do is like, you know, obviously, the Bisaludos and the Exif are like kind of riffing on the idea of like the human aliens that we met before. They were going to have the Exifs like wear the Zillion sunglasses like at one point. I'm sure
they hated that.
Yeah, and they're like, that looks dorky. I think it was like Shizuno was sort of like, that looks dorky. No, we're not going to do that. So you know, and again, not trying to put it all on him, but there's a lot of evidence.
A lot has to happen for these 2 movies to have turned out the way that they did. Right. It's not all on one person.
I will say that it doesn't seem like there's bad blood from like Seshida or anything, who has continued to work with Shizuno on stuff, obviously.
Yeah.
He's talking about being proud of these movies, but there's another part of that interview where it's like Seshida saying that like those untraditional ideas and questions can only come from that perspective. Fair. But then he says that ultimately led to female fans who had never seen the Godzilla series watching the animated Godzilla films, achieving our strategic goal. So the way that I think they are rationalizing this is that that they were looking for new fans of Godzilla to come to it. But my kind of pushback to that is that like that's if they've never seen a Godzilla movie before, they wouldn't fucking know what those references are. For one, I don't know, and also I don't know that like having some sunglasses on some aliens and having some cannons in here would like have changed that. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just sort of weird. And I also don't really like the idea of like you as a filmmaker approaching this as your strategic goal. That's what your company should be worrying about, not you as the creator.
Yeah. Yeah. It's weird.
I don't know.
It's very, very weird. It's just
bad vibe. It's just bad vibe. Like I love that they seem to love the movies that they made, and I'm happy for them. But I don't. It's just the intention just feels weird, and the approach to it feels weird, and it seems like it's just like such a. It doesn't see. It seems like it's like actually like, I don't know. It seems like such an active disinterest in making a Godzilla movie, despite coming from people who I know were fans of it, that it just ends up being like, well, then why the hell should I care then, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, it's bizarre. And I know Seshida is proud of these, but Seshida probably just dreamt of making a Godzilla movie. And like, that's fucking cool, you know, whether people like it or not, or whether it turns out the way you want it or not, he's probably stoked about that. I think the fact that he's still willing to tell us all of the ideas that he wanted to have
speaks for something.
I think says something. Yeah. I did expect the city to build a new Mechagodzilla. That was fully what I expected when I learned that the city was able to grow itself and replicate like a living being, and that the people, well, I guess specifically the Bilisaludo, could like create new technology using the city. I was like, okay, we're going to get a new Mechagodzilla that's going to be to the scale of, or at least to the magnitude of, Godzilla Earth. It's not going to succeed because I know there's a third movie, but like that's what this is going to be, you know, creating this Mechagodzilla. So that is, again, Mothra shocked she's not here. Mechagodzilla, I feel better about, I don't feel positive necessarily, but I feel better about there not being a Mechagodzilla by the end of this than I do there not being a Mothra by the end of this. But I was fully expecting a Mechagodzilla, and I think I would have been excited about it.
Yeah, I mean, you know, again, they didn't want a monster fight, so we know that's why. But I also think there maybe is a little bit of an element of like, we're subverting expectations, which is a thing that sometimes I think many creators of all kinds kind of lean on, and think that automatically means something's good when it doesn't necessarily, you know?
Okay, I don't know why it took like the 7th time, you know, this 40 minutes of us saying we know they don't want monster fights for this to hit me, but like, there's more action in this movie, but it's not like the action in this movie couldn't have been done by a stationary Mechagodzilla. You know?
But I think it really is just like robot dinosaurs are for nerds. It's kind of what the vibe that the way they talk about this gives me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it really does kind of feel like that. Like, I don't know. I feel like I'm going like farther and farther the direction of being mad about it. But it just kind of does feel like everything that is, it's like everything. It is frustrating when like everything that you kind of like about this whole genre and series is just like, yeah, but that's like loser dork shit. Like we don't want that in our totally cool sci-fi movie, you know?
And I totally get that. But like, I don't know why I'm making this case, but like, you could even say that like robot dinosaurs are loser shit and still make a robot dinosaur in your movie, because I assumed Mechagodzilla would fail. So you can, like, you know what I mean? Like there's I don't know, whatever. It's strange.
It's also,
it sounds like it makes sense. I don't know.
It's weird too, because the first movie did fucking show other monsters and shit at the beginning. So it's not like they're afraid of showing other kaiju.
Well, I think that's what I'm saying, weird. Right? Like if they don't want it to be a knockout you know, what is it? Knockout, drag down, whatever fight.
Knockdown, drag out.
That's right? It. Yes. Yeah. Like wrestling style fight. 2 movies in, I'm not expecting that action anyway, and I don't get that action 2 movies in. So like, I don't know. They could have still had it there, and it wouldn't have been a big monster fight, and it would have been fine. You still could have done a lot of the stuff that I do like towards the end. There's some big stuff I don't like at the end, but the stuff that I do like towards the end, you still could have done with a Mechagodzilla, and in a way that I actually think would be more compelling than the version we got, which I think is already compelling. So like when it comes to the Saludo, who I was like, I had a feeling, I didn't necessarily have this feeling. I didn't think this is where it was going to go, but I had a feeling they would be interesting, and I do think they're interesting. I like what is done with them in this movie. I think obviously, it's hard not to have like extremely conflicted feelings about what they're doing, but I like that this movie is willing to do it with them, and I like that they don't feel particularly alien when we first meet them. This movie is what makes them feel extremely different than humanity on Earth, right?
I agree. Yeah.
And I do like that the Saludo and what they're trying to accomplish is sort of the catalyst for Haruo to change or begin to change how he is viewing his own sort of like zealous attempt at destroying Godzilla. I think it's extremely clunky how they get to that point. I don't think they execute it well, but I like the idea of what the Saludo are trying to do being so extreme, like so deeply, deeply extreme that even Haruo, who for an entire movie just screamed about how he wanted to kill Godzilla, is like, actually, maybe that's too much. Like, I think there is something there.
I do think so. I agree. It's clunky, and also like it's still like not until the end of this movie that Haruo like makes that change. So it's still like a whole other movie of Haruo being like basically a static character who just yells a little bit less until the very end.
And there's this weird thing that they do in this movie where I think having the Saludo's extremism be something that sort of activates a different part of Haruo be really, really smart. But actually, like, he begins to question his motives, like, long before that to Metphys for reasons that the movie never explains. He just suddenly is like, am I too mad? And I was like, why are you suddenly saying this? Why are you suddenly worried that you're too mad?
That's actually a really good point.
And by the end of the movie, it's sort of like, I guess I'll just ignore that happened because now what you're doing makes sense. But that's why I say I think it's really clunky, because it's like, by the time you understand what actually would make him question things, it's like you kind of already showed us him questioning things, but didn't tell us why.
Yeah.
Like kind of all in service of a post-credit scene, which is fucking weird.
What I would love to do is maybe put a pause on the Saludo stuff, because that is the end of the movie is all about the Saludo's plan coming to fruition, and then the way the movie ends and all the nanobot stuff and everything, which I think is a whole other conversation that I would love to deep dive into. I would like to put a pin in that, save that for the end.
Yep.
And right now stop down on the Hotua stuff, because that's really the kind of the first half of this movie is meeting these sort of indigenous, the indigenous people of this version of 20,000 years into the future Earth that are basically like, this anime trilogy are like island movies, but the island is the entire planet Earth, and these are sort of like infant island natives essentially.
Yes.
But they're just the only humans on Earth that are also like Mothra people at the same time, because they're also like part moth, I guess.
Are they? I don't know that the movie asks that question like really, 17 times, but I don't know if they ever answer it.
Yeah, no, well, I think that this movie loves to, maybe this whole trilogy, it seems like, loves to like propose ideas and questions, but not, and be like, we're hard sci-fi, but then like not actually do the work of hard sci-fi by like remotely explaining anything. I do think, I think with them, at least in this movie, we'll see what happens in the next one, but I'm not confident that things will be explained.
I mean, given how much of the first movie was just sort of like not action and talking,
sure.
My hope is that, or not my hope, my expectation is that it will not end, that they will ask questions they don't answer. But in this case, it truly is like, how many more times are you going to have a different character ask, what are the Hotua? They seem like bugs. How many times are we going to ask the question? you know?
Is it all in service of like just the mystery of what the strange, like the dust is or whatever? Like, is it so they don't want you to know exactly what that is? Is that what it's for?
I don't know, because I mean, I think that is what makes them think that they are part insect, right? Or do they actually do scientific like testing or research of some kind that tells them they are closer to bugs, or
I don't remember where that information comes from exactly, actually. Like I don't remember what prompts them to bring that up, actually. They might have done. I feel like what's his Dr. Martin,
there's
whatever
like a
his
professor,
name is.
yeah.
That doctor guy, I think maybe he does do an analysis of them, I think.
It's
but
tough
I
because
can't
in
tell you
these
for
movies,
sure.
and this isn't exclusive to these movies, I'm not even saying this necessarily as a unique dig at these movies, but like these movies, science is like so advanced that they don't have to interact with something to like research it, which
That's true.
in a movie that's like already not explaining a lot is tough.
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily remember what like actual hard evidence they have for the Hotua being like insect people or humans that have somehow like evolved to have insect characteristics.
Yeah.
But
I mean, and I think
at the
they
very
are...
least, the powder that they seem to emit from their bodies is likened to certain powders that are on insects and moths. So
either way, I think that, because they're obviously meant to be related to Mothra or whatever, like that's on no uncertain terms, like that's what they are riffing on, are like infant islanders and the show vision for them, that like they're playing with that idea of like, is this magic? Is this some sort of science biology stuff,
And baby, this is a cool idea.
Sure.
The fact that we have been introduced to the concept of Godzilla Earth, and I think it's this movie where we really get in, we talked about it last movie, where Godzilla Earth and the planet itself sort of evolves and adapts around Godzilla because Godzilla is the most powerful thing. And so other organisms, be they animals or plants or whatever, end up succeeding if they can take on characteristics of, the king of this planet. I like that the seemingly only surviving humans that kind of live underground and separate from most other organisms also have their own godlike monster, and they have taken on that godlike monster's characteristics.
That is a cool
and I
thought,
like
yeah.
the idea that this could have been a planet of monsters where people were kind of always there, like more people were behind and survived than we thought when we left. And over 20,000 years, there are now kind of new, like kind of races of people that are kind of these monster, like infused people, depending on what monster they are around or gravitate around or whatever, like the people that are around Mothra for 20,000 years take on Mothra characteristics. The animals that are around Godzilla for 20,000 years take on Godzilla things.
Oh my God, there could be like a bear, like Baragon could be one of the monsters, and those people are like really, really good at digging. Like maybe they're the underground people, not the Mothra people or something like that. And
and you could do little things like the fact that the Hotua
cool,
have these like natural markings, because we learned that they're twins and their markings are identical. But like you could do things with that where Baragon's people have like a little horn or something. Like you could do.
Oh my God,
I know they're not
the
going to veer
fiction.
too much because they don't want any of their humanoid characters to veer too much, but
the Rodan people like just like survive heat like really, really well or something.
Yeah, there's so many things you could do with that sort of idea. So I do love, I like the idea of the Hotua and Mothra kind of being this exception to what the planet is doing, or this exception, or the first clue that maybe the theory doesn't apply to the entire planet.
I think that's really cool. Yeah. I also think a smart thing that they do is like offer differing perspectives from like the human characters that we've been following, because like half of them are sort of like, oh, well, like their whole civilization underground, like they're like ants, obviously. And like, they're not an evolution, they're a degeneration. And at the same, and then on the other side, you're sort of like, they're literally like telepathic magic people. Like they're pretty fucking sick, actually. Like I do like the, and I always like a conversation of like just because something looks primitive to you doesn't mean that they aren't actually an advanced civilization who are just living a different way than you live, and like have different priorities than you do,
Yeah.
Like I like that, and I do think that in this movie, that conversation, I think is well explored, because I think it's meant to be very clear that like the people who are being shitty to them are wrong. The fact that like they fucking like find a human on this planet and immediately are sort of like calling her that thing and trying to like restrain her and shit, like she's a fucking animal. I'm like, shouldn't you be like a little bit more excited that there's like people living on the planet that you want to recolonize?
Well, I think one thing that's clever is that most of the characters who are excited to see Maina or any of these people tend to be Earth humans, and the people who tend not to give them a chance are the Bilasoluto. Before you know what the Bilasoluto are all about and how far they're willing to go, they're the ones calling the Hotua degenerations, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that's like a smart thing to sort of have early on as an unrelated event that informs you of the greater Bilasoluto sort of, belief system or whatever that we end up seeing on full display by the end of the movie. There's like, it's like those types of things that tell me like, obviously these are competent storytellers. Like these are not people who don't know how to tell a story. Like there are bits and pieces here that make that really clear. It's just that they're weirdly few and far between. That is one of them though.
Yeah, it's cool. And I like that stuff. I mean, it's very like, that kind of stuff feels like really good explorations like Star Trek has done, where it's like, let's find these alien races that have really distinct like philosophies and belief systems and cultures, and just see how they would bump up against each other and compare and view each other. Like those things are always really interesting.
And like, I don't know, half the Godzilla movies we've watched have some kind of, well, maybe not half, that's probably a big estimate, but plenty of the Godzilla movies we've watched have had some kind of conversation across cultures about what is appropriate to do or what is not appropriate to do, or they're meeting a new indigenous culture and some characters are not giving them enough credit or a chance and other people are, or it turns out the movie makes the indigenous character the most capable character in that movie. I mean, the Showa era does not handle a lot of that particularly well a lot of the time, but it is still kind of baked into a lot of those movies, is this kind of exploration. And this is just sort of like a futuristic, harder sci-fi version of that exploration. So there is something here, both in what the Hotua represent and how the Bilasoluto react to them, and these sort of combating philosophies that I think is arguably one of the more Godzilla things we've seen in these two movies, you know? Mm-hmm. Now that we actually have a sense of who these characters are, because we don't have different nations on Earth, right? We don't have the city people and the country people and the island people. Like those dynamics are not represented in this particular movie. So all we have are the Bilasoluto, the Exif, the humans, and now the Hotua. And you need to build some kind of dynamic there. Yeah. So they've kind of infused some of that into this.
Yeah. I want to talk about the two Hotua people, like the only two new character, like significant new characters, I think, in this movie.
I'm so stupid, Derek. You literally asked me, will there be another woman character? And I feel like I answered it in a particular spirit, which is like, of the main cast that we were introduced to here, like of the humans who are trying to get back their home, will there be another woman? And I was like, no. Literally, we see in the end credits that there is another woman.
Sure, but like that doesn't necessarily mean that they would be a character, because they could have just written like, you know, like a homogenous tribe of people and no one's like a standout character. And even sometimes like I love them, but sometimes the Shobijin in like Mothra films are not really characters so much as just like elements of the narrative, you know? So like, I do think that the amount of screen time and the fact that there is like distinct characterization between these two twins that are, you know, obviously meant to be sort of riffs on the priestesses Shobijin from classical Mothra stories. Like, I do think that is actually really cool. I do think it's really fucking funny that there's like points in this movie, like when they first, you know, introduce these characters, the people, like the humans in our cast, are so shocked at the idea of twins. They're like, they're two girls. They look exactly the same. They must be twins. Like, I'm sure that, what are you talking about? Like, yeah, that's a thing that I'm I'm sure people over the last 20, maybe no twins have been born in the last 20 years on their space station. I guess it's possible.
I guess. I have no idea.
It was just like, I don't think it's been that far along. People have forgotten that that's a possibility that twins can exist.
No.
It's so weird.
Absolutely not. They're
so befuddled by two people looking alike.
Right. It doesn't make no. Yeah, no, that is ridiculous. They're main characters who remember living on Earth.
Right.
There are main
years.
characters who remember living on a planet with 1 trillion people. Like
20 years ago for us was the year 2005. Like that wasn't that long ago. Like come on.
Yeah, I don't understand why they're so shocked.
It was so weird. But anyway, our twins. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. The way I wrote their names down, Mayana and Miana is what I wrote down. Mm-hmm. Like, and they're spelled the same way. It's just flipping the I and the A on the beginning part of their name. The way I remember the difference, Mayana is Maina, A for angry because she's the angry one, and then Miana is the nice one. I can't think of a better one.
Oh shit! I think I had them backwards.
Unless I'm wrong. Hold on, we can fact check this right now.
I don't know. One of them scowls and one of them doesn't.
Right. Yes, Miana is the not scowly one.
Yeah, and that's the one who found Haruo, right?
She's the one that we see in the post-credit sequence of the first movie. I think, right?
Got
it. She's the one, or at least she's the one.
Yeah, because Miana is the one who's caring for Haruo, and presumably Mayana would maybe not.
She's the one who spends a lot of time with him at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah,
and then it's a big shock when you meet one who looks scowly. Yes, yeah, because twins don't exist in this world, I guess, except for this one situation.
I don't know why they're so shocked about twins.
Yeah,
I do like that because it's a good reminder that the Shobijin are not often characters or given not necessarily often, but frequently enough aren't given like characterization necessarily. They certainly, at least from what I've seen, have never been given distinct characterization. No, so it's kind of cool that they've at least given these two a slight difference in personality.
Wow, there's like
they don't really do a lot with it.
Hey, among the cast of women in this movie, I would honestly argue that these two get more characterization than the one who's like the second build woman in this movie.
Yeah.
We'll save that for later. Put a pin in that.
Yeah.
But no, I agree with you. I think it's really cool. I do want to talk about their actors real quick. I mean, they don't say a ton in these movies because of the nature of them. But yeah, so Miana, the nice one, in Japan, she's voiced by Ari Ozawa, who, as usual, has a bunch of anime roles, stuff like Demon Slayer, The Promised Neverland, Genshin Impact. She's the lead in the anime This Art Club Has a Problem. In the English dub, Rachel Heger voices her, and she also has deep anime and video game credits. I think one of her probably bigger roles that people would probably know her from is as Celine in multiple Fire Emblem games. She's done additional voices in like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Monster Hunter, stuff like that. She has recurring voice roles in Little Witch Academia, and also I've Been Killing Slimes for 300 years and maxed out my level. Her sister, Mayana, the scowly one, in Japan, she's voiced by Reina Ueda, who also Demon Slayer, also like other characters like Bleach. She was in the SSS Gridman. Mm-hmm. She's also been in Chainsaw Man. She has recurring roles in that. She's Mallow in the Pokemon Sun and Moon anime.
Oh, yeah, that's a main character. That's like almost every episode.
Yeah.
It's another companion-like character.
Oh, okay, cool. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
And also she was the monster Miss Sweetcake in Godzilla recently. So it's funny we've had a few Godzilla voice actors. She also did the dub voice for Zatanna in Young Justice.
Oh, wow.
And probably more significantly, she did the dub voice for Silver Surfer in Fantastic Four First Steps.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, very cool, very cool. In English, Kendall Gimby, who's sometimes credited as Kendall Kiniano, does her voice. She is the title character Junior on the preschool show Junior on the Job. But a lot of the stuff that she does is like English dubbing for K-dramas specifically.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, she's like in that zone.
Whoa, we don't intersect with that almost ever.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised. Like, I wonder why that's like, I don't know. It feels like that's almost like its own separate area or something. But yeah, and she's done some video game voices like Diablo 4. She's done some voices in that as well, which is a pretty big deal. But yeah, that's thought that was fun. Yeah, what do you think of their designs?
Okay, I I like their designs fine. I also don't feel like many character designs we've seen to this point, I don't really think they're like that distinct or special. Like, I think they look cool. I don't think they look like something I've never seen before. I think you could drop them into a Legend of Zelda game and you would not bat an eye.
That is 1000% correct, Doug. And I'm saying this as someone who like only knows Zelda, like never played a Zelda game in my life. I know just like the world and the iconography. Everything I've ever seen from any Zelda game ever looks like these motherfuckers. You're so fucking right. The tribal tattoos, the look of the hair. Oh my God. I think
the whole Hotua civilization looks like a location you could go to in a Legend of Zelda game.
Dude, that's so funny.
Which is why, like, I think they look cool. I think most things in the Legend of Zelda look cool. I just don't. I don't know. When I got a good look at Miana, I wasn't like, holy shit, that's a really cool design. Right. I just was sort of like,
she looks like a tribal person.
She's sort of like a sci-fi tribal, tribal person. Yeah.
Yeah. I think my favorite parts of them are their bangs that look like Mothra's antenna.
Yes.
I think that's cool.
That is actually very, very cool. That I will give like full credit to. That's sick.
Yeah, I think it's cool. I mean, that's the thing that's frustrating. This movie has like these little kernels of really good ideas sometimes.
Yeah.
But a lot of the stuff, like with their general designs, I feel like a thing that I don't know that I was thinking about, but that I feel like it keeps coming back to is that, like, you know, they were trying to swerve away from doing traditional Godzilla stuff, but what they swerved into was like just generic things you've seen before. It feels like they're not swerving into like really brand new ideas. And that even extends to like designs and stuff, which is really a bummer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to think, is there anything else about the Hotua worth talking about?
Sure. I mean, just to specifically call it out, I think their big stone wall that has an abstract Mothra on it rules, sure. And I just want like a blanket that looks like that.
That's very cool.
I do think it is. We see a lot of the Hotua as like a people. I don't feel like the amount we see them equals the impact they have as a people on this movie. Like, it feels like there's a whole sort of maybe like it feels like there's elders, and it feels like they're doing something, and it feels like the way they communicate is a whole big thing, but then it doesn't feel like everything they're showing us would be better than just the twins talking. Does that make sense? Am I not being fair? Like, the humans don't spend a lot of time with the Hotua people for any particular reason.
Here's what I like.
Yeah.
I like the telepathy.
Yeah, I think that's cool.
I like that they have telepathy, and I think that that's an easy workaround for how they communicate and how they can like very quickly learn the language that the humans are speaking, because they already are kind of like connected to their brains through like magic telepathy.
Yeah, I dig that.
I think that aspect is cool. Other than that, I don't. I
was looking down at my notes and there was just a pause, and I was like, "Oh, he's done."
But that's the thing, is like I like that aspect of it, and I like what the Hotua introduce to the lore of this stuff, and thematically, if they're trying to, you know, have this direct contrast between technology and nature. But like I think the most boring section of the movie is just when the characters are just hanging out with Hotua.
Well, because
not really doing anything, and just nobody's answering any questions, and just being like,
that part.
Kind of odd. What's going on here? I don't know. And then no one has any meaningful conversations.
I mean, maybe they're, you know, I feel like we've been taking lots of digs at like hard sci-fi in general, and maybe there are people who are super into hard sci-fi who are like, you guys just don't actually get it. I don't know.
No, hard sci-fi can be done better than this. I'm sorry. Way better than this.
I'm just saying, there are like thick, hard sci-fi tomes that will spend chapters explaining like how a fucking toilet works. Like,
this doesn't fucking explain shit though.
But here's what I'm saying. Like, so much of what I find slow, and I'm not saying I like it and I'm not defending it, but so much of what I find slow is like people in the universe saying in like 12 more sentences than we need and 7 more exchanges between 12 characters than we need, what one character could just observe and describe, right? So like, I don't know that we need the entire team discussing how they are communicating with us. One character can just be like, whoa, they're able to communicate with us telepathically. And then another character, whoa, you can understand us and them. Like,
there's a lot of it that is kind of restated over and over again.
Right.
Which I do think lends to the weird pace of the movie, where it feels like it's just a long spans of time where nothing is really happening because you're just hearing them explain the same things over and over again that you've already kind of figured out probably, or that doesn't really matter that much.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's the doesn't really matter much part, right? Yes. Because if they were exploring the nature of the telepathy, and that telepathy really, really deeply fucking mattered, it like at the end of this movie in some way, shape, or form, then like, cool, sick. They learned about it, they learned how to use it, and it helped them out, you know? But I don't remember that happening.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just, again, that's just this fucking movie in the nutshell, though, is just like really cool ideas that then just like fucking the most boring versions of it in long scenes where people are just over explaining stuff that doesn't matter. Like, I don't know. Yeah.
It feels like they don't have enough to fill a 90-minute movie. And so they make people talk about things longer than they need to. Right.
They also, I mean, we do get, you know, an intense love affair between Haru and Yuko. And that kind of stuff is happening throughout all of this too. It's a sweeping romance happening right here behind the scenes.
My brain just stopped. I was like, what?
Most like intense sarcasm I've ever had. I cannot believe how badly these first two fucking movies have treated who is ostensibly, I guess, meant to be their female lead, who's like second build and shit. It's bananas.
This movie I like better than the first one. It has more things I like. This makes me so much more angry than anything the first movie did. I don't understand what the fuck they were doing with Yuko. I was so convinced that the reason she was featured as much as she was in the first movie was because she was going to be important in this movie to humanity in some way. It's not that she isn't, but
she's definitely like, a narrative device of a kind.
Dude. But like they position her as like basically the number one human to be like, she's like the military guy. You know what I mean? Like she is the soldier, essentially. She is the one who is in the big weapon most of the time. Like she's the one who saves people from the monsters on the ground because she's the big guns, you know? And as much as it is like, it's really easy to make like the cute sort of soft-spoken small girl, like the muscle, like
sure,
we've seen it a million times. It's still something, you know? And so I was like, okay, fine. You can have that because you're going to have her be really critical in some point in saving somebody or stopping something or getting somebody from point A to point B when they otherwise wouldn't have been able to do it. These are all the things I was like, she's going to have her moment. Man, I don't know if it's like technically fridging by definition, but like this shit sucks.
I think it is, because why else is she fucking dying at the end of this movie other than just to like make Haru upset and drive whatever
and realize like
next.
I can lose things I care about.
Right. Well, yeah. I'm sure of the fucking guy who lost his parents, lost an entire fucking planet, lost his grandpa, needs to learn that he can lose things in the middle of his fight for Godzilla. Like, what are you talking about? It's so
he didn't
weird.
know how much she might have loved her until she was fucking dead.
It's just so, again, they're swerving away from Godzilla shit to take the most like boring possible directions of this stuff. Like, it's the most basic ass like shitty anime dude romance I've ever seen. Ever. It's like,
and they
so
could have
paint by
subverted
numbers.
it just fine, because what happens to her is still what happens to her before they fucking kill her I guess. I'm not convinced she's necessarily dead.
And we'll talk about it. It's ambiguous, but
it's still,
I don't know.
In the movie, by the end of this movie, she's just dead, effectively. Yeah. It still accomplishes exactly that. Looks exactly that way.
It is weird, like leaving off. It's like, is she supposed? Am I supposed to think that this means she's dead or not? But I think that you are supposed to feel like, and at least Haruo, the character, thinks she's dead. That's all.
Yes. That's the point.
It's still meant to be
that he thinks she's dead. All that to say, like, what happens to her before they kill her, essentially, is interesting. The fact that she is the soldier and therefore she is put into this position as one of the only people Haruo seems to care about, and is like the one person who's kind of willing to see the Bilisaludos side, and then that makes her like a victim of the Bilisaludos extremism. You can still do all that without killing her. Like, you can still have that be a horrifying thing that happens, because the horror of it was effective to me, right? Like, that was supposed to happen to both of them, and it is clever enough to distinguish why it doesn't happen to Haruo and does happen to her. Like, that all they managed to cover those bases, but yeah, like you said, the most boring outcome of it is to just have her die and make him mad, as opposed to like have it. And again, maybe the third movie does something cool with it, but like I don't know that she's necessarily going to turn into like a half human, half living metal creature. I mean, that might be sick if she does, but like
that would be sick.
But I don't have hope, because like they're not taking the more interesting thing. Like, if she, I don't know, this movie's interested, this one in particular, this movie is interested in doing things that are like sci-fi horror, right? Like the Bilisaludos entire thing is a good sci-fi horror thing. And there are cool things you could do with that. If she is somehow now fused with her mech, that shit sucks and is weird and compelling and fucked up, you know? Like, you could do something with that. But so like it truly was like, when I realized like, oh no, she's like actually not gonna get out of this okay, that I was like, damn, this truly sucks. I mean, they weren't doing a lot with her to that point, but I was like, here's her moment, she's gonna do something.
One of the things that stuck out to me, because it's a line that I'm still parsing, and I both the dub and in like the subtitles for the Japanese, it's more or less worded the same way, is when she's having one of her, very, sensual, we're supposed to be seeing the sparks flying romantic moments with Haruo, and I'm just like, gag. She's she tells him, I wrote this down verbatim, "You taught me you can stay mad at what you can't forgive." What? Right. She's like telling her to Haruo, like,
you taught me that you can stay mad.
You can stay mad at what you can't forgive. Now, it's possible maybe the subtitles were like,
what is she saying that in response to, or in what context? Because
she's just talking to Haruo of like why she loves him, basically.
Because there's a context where that makes sense, which is to say it's okay to basically like not forgive something unforgivable. Like there's a context where that line makes sense.
She's talking about generally basically like, you being mad at Godzilla has taught me that it's okay to stay mad at what you can't forgive. She's basically like validating his like Moby Dick revenge scheme, is what drives me kind of nuts, because I feel like, aren't we supposed to not feel like that's the right thing?
Yes. Okay. No, there might be something interesting there, actually.
Okay.
Because I don't think the movie wants us, the audience, to think that. And so I actually do think it makes sense for Yuko, who is a character who has become willing to sort of accept things that she wouldn't have accepted earlier from the Bilisaludo, that every other human is kind of horrified by.
Yeah, sure.
It makes sense that like she is now at a point where it's like, holy shit, Yuko! Like I'm shocked you are thinking these things. You weren't supposed to be this mad, right? Like I was mad. You're not supposed to be that mad.
That's a good point, because then suddenly like Haruo isn't just responsible for, his own hatred and anger. He's responsible for kind of spreading like the nanobots and the gray goo spread. He's responsible for spreading his hatred onto someone else.
And she directly tells him that.
Right. And it's sort of like, so which pushes her to the point that she's siding with Bilisaludo.
That makes her willing to do the thing at the end.
Right, like
her
the reason
anger.
that she is in the mech that then gets taken over and then by the nanobots that basically kills her. It's actually like very much his responsibility because he basically pushed her in that situation, convinced her to do that, and she's essentially punished for siding with the Bila Saludo, more or less. And I do think that is good character work and narrative stuff of like,
that's actually
like,
good.
It's still frustrating that it just uses Yuko as just like a narrative device and not as a character.
It doesn't erase that even a little bit.
But it does. I do think it makes me weirdly feel better about the fridging aspect of it because it's not just, oh no, the girl I liked is dead. It's like Haro is seeing the consequence of what his thirst for revenge and his sheer hatred has done to another person and pushed them to do. And like, the more people listen to him and respect him, the more other people are going to be put in that situation.
I do think the movie needs to be really willing to make the audience feel like it is Haruo's fault, though, and I don't think the movie does that.
At least not this one.
Yeah, well,
fair. I do think
how he reckons with it.
It ends on a cliffhanger with him literally cradling her in his arms,
That's
so
true.
like obviously you have the next movie to deal with the consequences of that. Theoretically, we'll see, but I do think it maybe says something that the two of us, who I think are pretty discerning individuals and about engaging with media, it took us a while to like come to that conclusion that that's what we're supposed to glean from the Haruo Yuko thing, which I do think maybe means that the movie did not communicate it as well as it maybe could have, especially considering how much space the movie has to communicate many things and how much other stuff it communicates. That seems to matter a lot less.
It still contributes to the fact that it is a problem she is the only woman. The fact that this is the storyline the only woman gets, like, there's no reason so many of these characters could not have just been a woman. And then, like, it truly is amazing what happens when you put more than one woman in your cast. Like,
right. It is weird. Yeah, right.
Okay, that's interesting. That was an unexpected thing
better.
I like about it that I wasn't expecting to pull out of it.
I appreciate that.
I still hate how it ends. I still fucking hate how it ends.
I was still pissed off at that. I mean, because the entire climax of the movie that we've kind of talked around is this idea that the Bila Saludo, ultimately their plan, and I think implied to be their plan from making Mechagodzilla from the beginning before humans even left Earth, was that like they'll do this with their nanotechnology. It'll defeat Godzilla, but really that's just the beginning, and eventually their technology will take over the planet. And more importantly, they would assimilate with the nanotech, basically getting rid of their physical bodies, and their consciousness would merge with the nanotech. And it would just be a planet of that, like, typical sci-fi gray goo, right? Like just the nanotech that just replicates and eats everything, which is
the highest honor would be to be a part of that.
Right. That is their belief system. That's their philosophy. And they're portrayed as very like logic brain, like kind of like Vulcan in a way, but like to like an extreme where it's to the point that they
meet Spartans.
Yes. That's perfect. Exactly. Like very logic, but also very like honor based and everything. And I think that is really interesting. I think it's a really interesting take on it. And like the nanotech stuff, it's like the classic sci-fi story.
Yeah.
And I think that, again, one of the things that I like most about this movie is like the very, very clear contrast of nature versus technology.
Yeah.
Which other Godzilla movies have done before, especially Mechagodzilla ones. So totally makes sense. I think that like probably the best part of this movie to me, or at least when I was most drawn into it and compelled by it, is how like the intense like final sequence where like the Bila Saludo are fully there, and then it's like, okay, humans, now you're also going to be assimilated with this against your will. Like that shit is really, really well done and really compelling.
Really good. The point at which you realize, because the Earth humans have realized that the Bila Saludo just straight up were lying to them, like, is genuinely like a horrifying realization. Especially because you see, again, this is another one of those things that you see earlier on. You see bodies that have become part of Mechagodzilla City, and the Bila Saludo, I guess, lied about what that was. Or if they weren't lying, we're not telling the entire truth of how those things could happen,
Yeah.
or that somebody might do that on purpose, or that it is a thing that is normal by their, like, you know what I mean? Like they do say that, like, oh, those people were already dead, and so the city sort of formed around them and used them as a resource, which isn't that different than what we saw in the first movie when we were talking about the fungus sort of taking over and taking the shape of the city. Like there is sort of an echo there.
I like that. Yeah. And and I think the movie, I think that I don't mind being unclear in this movie is like exactly what things that they said were truthful and what things were lies. We don't really know exactly how much control the Bela
I know
Saluto
that's
have
where the
over
ambiguity
this.
actually serves
I like
this
it.
movie.
Cause I do think that like, I don't super totally love how the movie handles everything, but I do think that there is an element of sort of like, you don't really like, you're not really supposed to fully know what the right course of action is fully here, because it does seem like they are fully right that this Mechagodzilla city could defeat Godzilla, which is the goal, right? It seems like it could do it, and theoretically they could have some element of control. The problem is that it seems to be that the Bela Saluto are power hungry enough that they'll let the whole thing like take over the planet. Mm-hmm. What's unclear is sort of like, would it just do that regardless of the Bela Saluto being in control or not? Like, I don't fucking know.
I don't know.
I would argue that like, for a movie that's so into being very talky and being very hard sci-fi and wanting to have these conversations, it is a little bit of a cop-out that they introduce the sort of nanotech technology thing, which is a genuine, like, interesting scientific, like, argument you could make of, like, is a self-replicating nanotech thing, like, fully dangerous, or is there a way that it could be used in a positive way?
Yeah.
But I do think it's a little bit of a cop-out that it's sort of like, doesn't really matter because the aliens that made it and are in control of it are like making it take over the earth anyway. Like, okay, so like there's no way to have that conversation. Because like there's a point when like Yuko, like, you know, when she's siding with them and it's sort of like only the dudes who are like volunteering like are being taken over by this, which we know is a lie. But like theoretically, if only the people who like want to assimilate with this technology are doing it and no one else is forced to do it, like I don't think that that's a bad thing. Like, I don't know. And even then still, it's like Yuko's still sort of like, I mean, it's like gross and icky and I'm not going to do it, but like, if they want to do it, they can. But I do think it kind of, I don't know. They're so anti that to the point that it's like never in any reality should anyone with a physical form be willing to give up their physical form and have their consciousness integrate with technology. And I do think there are people who would disagree with that. Yeah. And like there is a whole transhumanism idea and philosophy that exists that this movie like does not even fuck with at all. It's very much like the people who believe in that and believe in like you don't need your physical form, you can upload your consciousness, are like the bad guys, and the people who are like we need our physical form are the good guys. Mm-hmm. I think that's a little bit of a bummer that like I do think there was enough space in this movie to have a little more of a nuanced conversation, but it's like so clearly not interested in that and just wants to go on the horror of the nanotech Grey Goose stuff. You know?
I think the fact that they don't
I don't know. That could be me reading too much like my own feelings
I like
into
this.
it.
I think this is interesting. I do think the fact that by the end of the movie we are supposed to believe that what the Bela Saluto are doing is horrifying, not because they are choosing to be part of the city and not because they're trying to create a god, because they believe that creating a god is like the ultimate accomplishment and, you know, beyond humanity.
Right, sure.
Like, I don't think that's why we're supposed to believe what they're doing is wrong. I think we are supposed to believe what they're doing is wrong because they're willing to force other people into being a part of their goal.
I would push back on that only because as soon as they introduce the very concept of the Bela Saluto who are volunteering to like integrate their bodies in the nanotech, every single fucking character that aren't Bela Saluto are like, that's the worst, most disgusting thing you could ever do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, but having characters in the universe react that way doesn't necessarily mean that the movie is landing there.
That's fair.
Because the Bela Saluto react in a particular way to the Hotua that I don't think we're supposed to believe either.
That's fair. That is fair.
I mean, I think there is something to say about the fact that like the Bela Saluto do basically just end up being wholesale bad guys. Right. I
think it's weird that there is no one, like, I'm surprised that their scientist guy, what the fuck is his name? Martin Lazari.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that he is not just sort of like, I don't know, it seems cool to me, guys. Like it feels like the only person that shows any, like, approaches it with any sense of nuance, that it's sort of like, no, I could see like both sides of this, is Yuko, who ends up immediately being punished for it.
Yeah.
And the movie is like, yeah, everyone who thought this was a good thing is either evil or getting killed. So
yeah. I mean, I don't know. There is plenty of art and thought that like explores the idea of why that might not be a bad thing, and there are plenty of people who have been exploring that for a long time. I don't know that it is like as like mainstream of a conversation that it surprises me that this movie is treating it like something people would be horrified by.
I mean, and again, I'm putting a lot onto this movie that obviously is just using as a horror climax. I get that, and that's just like the tool of the bad guys.
Because I do think that's the motivation. But you're right. There is a version of this movie that's interested in that.
Because if this movie is stripping away typical Godzilla stuff and needs something to replace that typical Godzilla stuff, then like that could be an interesting thing, is having an interesting philosophical like conundrum where like you're not exactly sure where you as a viewer would land, and this movie's not interested in doing that. It just goes pretty full on basic, just here's the villain plan, I don't know.
I mean, I think that's what its goal was, and so it does that. It's just weird there's not even a single there's not a single Bill Saluto who is horrified that it's a lie that they are not all volunteers.
Which,
like, I think that you could have baked that layer in and it would have complicated things enough,
right,
that some of what you're talking about would just inherently be part of the equation.
It's like, we got 3 fucking movies, guys. There's room to have characters,
right,
more characters doing things, but instead the Bill Saluto are very homogenous, unfortunately.
I know it's somewhat annoying to keep doing this, but I think it's impossible not to, given that this was built as a trilogy. And so we know that there are 3 movies, but could they have taken the first movie and this movie and not really changed that much of like what the actual events are, and just put it into like a 2-hour or an hour and 45-minute movie and still had it basically end where this one does, and have it be, we defeated the first Godzilla, realized shit, there's a bigger Godzilla. We use the Bill Saluto technology, which makes us feel like we haven't lost hope to try to defeat Godzilla Earth. It fails. And then the second part of the story is another movie where it's like, okay, we have to reset. Because I feel like that could have worked. And I know, like, we've said a bajillion times that these movies could have been condensed. But I do wonder, like, would that be a better movie inherently because it is condensing the events of this, I don't know.
It's hard to say. I mean, it is really hard to say. I think I do feel like that, like, I don't know. I do kind of, I obviously, I don't know for sure, but I do, my gut reaction is that like 1 2-hour movie would be better than the 2 like 90 to 100-minute movies that we got.
And here's why I think it might actually be the case, outside of just like spending less time and not having the pacing be different. Having these be 3 separate movies makes it hard not to ask what each movie is about. And I can't answer that question for this movie because this movie does not feel like its own movie. But I do think if you put the events of the first one and this one together, it becomes this escalation of humanity's desperation, or what humanity is willing to do, that results in this sort of like, shit, we went too far, which is a very sort of Godzilla exploration, depending on what type of movie you're watching, that could have made it feel like it is saying more because it is one sort of story. I don't know. It's weird. Again, just like I said last week, it's weird not having the full story to see where it all lands, but it's hard not to think about it that way. It's so bizarre to have these movies be structured this way. I don't know. I kept thinking about what you were saying when I was watching the second one about like, this should just be a series instead. And I think that probably is ultimately like the best case scenario. So
I think that would kind of solve a lot of stuff.
I mean, a lot of the choices they're making would still be the choices they're making, but
That's true. It wouldn't solve everything, but it would I think make it a more interesting, well-paced watch that would definitely create more space to give other characters some more shades. I don't know.
Yeah, and even if I try to reframe it as like a 3-part miniseries event, like it still doesn't. It
doesn't work. Yeah.
Doesn't work in my brain as just simply reframing it.
Yeah. I don't know. Anything else you want to bring up about this movie before we start wrapping up?
No. I mean, my final thoughts truly are just like, I did actually just, the act of watching this movie was more enjoyable than the first one was. There's a lot about this movie that I will probably continue to think about. and I've kind of already forgotten a lot of what the first movie was doing beyond the big things that I kind of didn't like. So the fact that I'm walking away from this movie with stuff to think about and sort of turn over, more positive feelings about this one. Hopefully the trajectory stays that way.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? I had one more question I want to ask you. We'll mention it for predictions. Save the actual conversation about it for predictions. But how they mentioned Ghidorah obviously in the post-credit sequence. You've had to have figured out very early that that's what that was going to be, right?
Sir,
that's what was being alluded to. Like, what the fuck else would it be?
The moment he's whispering in Haruo's ear, I was like, why are you hiding this from us? Because if you're new to these movies, the name Ghidorah won't mean anything to you.
True.
And if you're not new to these movies, you know what he's saying.
That's actually a really good point. Like, it's for no one. Hiding it is for nobody.
I'm telling you, it's purely for the post-credit scene. These movies need to give up the post-credit scenes.
Yeah.
They're bad. I generally don't like post-credit scenes anymore, so this is my particular bias. But
both cases, they're really frustrating.
And this one, I think, is just genuinely a waste of my time letting the credits roll all the way through.
Yeah.
That pissed me off. I mean, it was exciting because it meant that, like, I'm gonna see Ghidorah. Well, presumably, if Ghidorah isn't just sort of like a force.
Yeah, okay, so
a space station, you know.
That's what I was gonna say. Like, if Mechagodzilla was a city and Godzilla Earth is like nature, what would Ghidorah be? I love Ghidorah rolling up as a space station.
A space station, yeah. But presumably, I will see Ghidorah as a result of this. So that carries me through that moment. That does genuinely annoy me.
Yes.
I thought that was such an annoying thing to do.
Trying to think if there's anything else that I'm forgetting before. Oh, I guess you do kind of get a reddish colored Godzilla. like the one.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we didn't really fucking talk about Godzilla at all with this one, but it's because he really just stands around
Godzilla
and gets
walks
fucking
like 300 meters and that's it.
That's it. And then he's just like shot at a bunch and that's really about it. But he gets red. I just thought that was kind of funny because that's,
yeah, I'm curious to see what it looks like because I don't know if I love it. So we'll see.
Yeah.
I don't know if it looks as cool as I want it to.
We have one more movie. We'll see.
Yep. Yep.
All right. Predictions. So the final film in the series is called The Planet Eater.
Whoa.
Doug, how the fuck do you think that the series is going to wrap up? What is going to happen next?
I don't know. I mean, last time I predicted kind of a general idea of what was going to happen based on the title, and that was so wrong. And I could have never predicted what the actual city on the edge of battle was. Mm-hmm. So as far as like Planet Eater, I don't know. I mean, Godzilla's not going to eat a planet, so I'm pretty convinced. I mean, I was already convinced of this, but now it feels very obvious that Ghidorah is going to show up. And so maybe Ghidorah is what Planet Eater is referring to. We already know that it destroyed Metphys' planet. So I'm going to say Planet Eater just simply refers to Ghidorah. And then maybe this is actually the one where we get a monster versus monster battle because we were kind of cheated out of it in this one. And that Mechagodzilla wasn't really actually Mechagodzilla.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, this will be a new movie for me too. And I'm pretty much on the exact same wavelength. It seems like Ghidorah will be a Planet Eater. That seems like to be I don't really know how we get to the next step, but it seems like that's the next step. I also don't know about this next thing either. Is Yuko dead or what the fuck's going on with her?
I think that the way that so the way that scene with Yuko ends is weird because she's still like making noises by the time the scene actually cuts off.
Oh.
So so I want to say she's not actually dead. And the fact that she was like crying some sort of
nanotech tears,
weird metal liquid means that she's just transformed in some sort of irreversible way.
Yeah.
Also, I've already predicted that she's going to be way more important, and I would hate for her way more important to just be that she dies so that Haruo gets mad. So
God, I hope so.
Yeah,
I hope so.
She's not dead for real.
God, I hope so. We'll see. Okay, do you think an actual Mechagodzilla will ever actually appear?
I don't think an actual Mechagodzilla will ever appear. I mean, I do think it's cool what they did with the Bilisaludo and Mechagodzilla and their sort of take on the remains of Mechagodzilla. I'm personally satisfied by it, I think. So I don't think that there will be a Mechagodzilla. I also just don't get the vibe that the movies that they are making will result in a Mechagodzilla appearing after everything that happened with Mechagodzilla City.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Okay, well then with Ghidorah, what do you think they're actually going to do with Ghidorah in the next movie then?
I don't really know what'll happen with Ghidorah outside of just it's going to show up and then now the big problem is Ghidorah. I mean, I guess this is their opportunity to have Godzilla sort of it's weird because Godzilla is not like bad in the sense that Godzilla is not evil really. It's just sort of an antagonist.
No, not at all.
In what the humans are trying to accomplish.
No,
so,
like they said, he's a philosopher. He's not
anyway,
a bad guy.
I guess this is an opportunity for Godzilla to work alongside humans or be a means alongside humans or a tool for the humans. That sounds kind of weird, but
yeah, working together. Yeah,
I don't know. This might be the opportunity for humans and Godzilla to sort of be on the same page out of necessity, right? Because Godzilla might be the planet or might have transformed the planet, but Ghidorah, I'm assuming, will threaten the actual existence of the planet. Like truly like it even existing. So I'm guessing it's sort of a weird team up thing to stop Ghidorah.
Yeah, like a lesser of two evils thing. Totally. No, I think that totally makes sense. I totally agree. I hope so. I mean, we've seen like that arc in other Godzilla movie series before.
Yeah.
It would make sense for the humans to have to like learn to team up with Godzilla or something like that at the end of this one. I think that would be a pretty solid arc actually.
Yeah.
Okay, well, speaking of kaiju, do you think that other kaiju will appear in the next movie?
I certainly hope Mothra will appear. I'll say that much because it's funny because I like I said, when I was watching this, I felt stupid for not having predicted that Mothra would be around, given that we knew when we were talking about the first movie that there would be like an indigenous population left on this planet of monsters, which is sort of like an island of monsters with an indigenous population that we've seen in so many other movies. So it's, stupid that I didn't predict Mothra would be around in this movie, but it's also kind of stupid that Mothra wasn't just in this movie. So,
just in the movie. Yep.
At least another kaiju in the form of Mothra will appear. Certainly. Right. So
I hope so.
Just, so at the very least, Godzilla, Ghidorah, Mothra.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, I cannot predict more monsters than what feels absolutely minimally necessary, sadly. So
I don't think it fits the vibe that they are going for at all.
Yeah, I think that's it. Just Mothra, Ghidorah, and Godzilla.
Yeah.
Unless there are like other baby Godzillas floating around, in which case maybe there's a bunch of other Godzillas. I don't know.
I didn't even think about that. I hope so. Oh my God, I hope so. I want to see baby Godzillas. We'll find out, I guess. Cool. Well, one more movie to go.
Here we go.
We'll have that next week on the 27th. Thanksgiving Day.
Oh, boy.
Thanksgiving Day, you'll be rewarded with the fucking Planet Eater, the finale to this. We'll see how this goes. But Doug, if people want to find anything you're doing, where's the best place to do that?
You can find me all over the place at Ikkybooley, ICKYBOOLEY. You can also listen to me on a podcast called Novel Gaming, where my friend Katie and I catch up on all the books and video games we've been enjoying lately. Derek and I have a weekly podcast called Walloping Web Snappers, where we deep dive into every Spider-Man cartoon ever made. And we have a mostly finished but still revisited show called Falling with Style that was sort of a predecessor to this show, where we watched all of the Pixar movies all the way through and now still sometimes revisit other animated things. We did a mini series that included queer stuff in not Pixar things because Pixar won't do it. And we will obviously revisit it when Hoppers comes out. So check out the Falling with Style feed as well. What about you, Derek?
Sure. You can find me most places at Derek B. Gale. My other podcasts, other than what Doug mentioned, include Lee Carvalho's Potting Challenge, where we look at Simpsons tie-in video games as well as Simpsons history and pop culture history. I think very soon after this one, I guess next week, we'll have our first episode on Simpsons Hit and Run. We're going to do that as a two-parter. So that was a big game because that's pretty much the entire reason that Tommy, I think, got me to do the podcast is he wanted me to play Hit and Run. So that should be out next Wednesday, I believe. And I also have Gimmicks, where we look at the high concept and experimental structure breaking gimmicky episodes of television. We have an episode on Terminator, the Sarah Connor Chronicles out. We have an episode on late night TV out. And I think we would have just had our episode on Pee-wee's Playhouse drop, which was a really fun one to do. Yeah, and I also have an article out on Pop Heist called Mannequin is Even Gayer Than You Thought about the movie Mannequin and my queer reading on that movie. So you can check that out on popheist.com as well. If you'd like to find other queer creators who talk about media, check out the Glitterjaw Queer Podcast Collective at glitterjaw.com. Follow us on Blue Sky at Glitterjaw and Instagram at GlitterjawPods. If you want to support us, you can do that on Patreon at patreon.com/wallopingwebsnappers, which is, of course, the name of our Spider-Man podcast, but that supports everything Doug and I do together. And we do often have Screonk bonus episodes. So if you want to hear more Godzilla-related things or kaiju-related things or Ishiro Honda movies that we covered that aren't in the Godzilla universe, that's your place to go. Check out our Discord if you want to chat with us. There's a link to that in the show notes. Email us at screonkpodcast@gmail.com. Rate, review, subscribe on all your platforms for podcasts. And like I said, if you are in the U.S., you will be enjoying your turkey dinner for Thanksgiving Day while listening to our episode for the final installment of this series, Godzilla, the Planet Eater.
Ooh, see you then.
See ya.